Hello, hello, my friends. AmyR here with Prairie Paper and Ink. Welcome back to my face and my card making space. And a couple more holiday cards for my 2024 holiday card series. I will have a link to that playlist in the description box at the end of the video. I will also post a link to another playlist using my all-time favorite stamp set that I have done dozens of videos using, which is the Simon Says Stamp Beautiful Flowers stamp set that came out many years ago. And yeah, I was just thinking about it the other day, and then I was like, I don't think I've ever used it to make a holiday card. I've made Halloween cards with it, Valentine's, like so many different like genres, but I don't think I've ever done a holiday card. So that's what I did. So I combined it with some newer products, another old, as well as another oldie but goodie favorite of mine. As always, I will post links in my supply list. So I'll have everything listed and linked in the description box below the video to what I used. My links are affiliate links. That just means that if you click on one of my links and end up placing an order, I do get a little kickback from that at no extra cost to you. It is what helps pay the bills, keeps the channel going. And yeah, that's it for the housekeeping. Let's get into making these cards. So for my florals, I am using some Neenah Desert Storm cardstock, and I'm going to arrange the individual flowers in this beautiful flower stamp set. That's all I'm using. I'm not using the big cluster, just these 3 individual flower stamps. And I'm lining them up in my MISTI. And the big thing to note with what I'm doing is they are staying in here. Once I'm done stamping them, I clean them off, but I left them there because I'm going to be stamping them again to heat emboss, which I'll get to. So I'm inking them up and stamping them onto the Neenah Desert Storm cardstock using Simon's Intense Block ink, which is an alcohol marker friendly ink. And I did this twice because, as usual, when I've got everything sitting out, why not do more than one? And then once they're stamped, I didn't worry about stamping them again. If I was leaving them just as is, I probably would have stamped everything twice just to make sure, I got all the detail. I really like kind of more intense black lines when I stamp with this ink, but like I said, I'm going to heat emboss over it, so we'll get to that. So this first little bit, this is real time. I don't color as fast as I show in my videos because I edit it and speed it up because I just don't really have a whole lot to share and I get bored with myself. So anyway, for my coloring, I am using my Olo markers. Any alcohol marker will work. I really like the Olos on Desert Storm. I like any alcohol marker on Desert Storm cardstock. I don't know. There's something about the craft, color. I just love it. And as a note as well, I guess, yeah, I'll add that playlist at the end too, because I can put 3. I'll put my Olo marker playlist because I've done a bunch of videos using these. Just another reminder in case someone's watching this and hasn't watched my other videos using these. These are half markers. They come with connectors and then you connect them to make them like a normal size marker. I personally haven't done that yet because I'm holding out, waiting for them to release. I keep hearing rumors they're going to release like bullet nibs, like a fine nib set, and I have all my fingers crossed that that's what's going to happen because that's what I'm holding out for. And so far, I don't have a problem using them as little stublets like this. It doesn't bother me. I would rather use them like this than have 2 different colors on one marker. That bugs me. Just is the way it is. So this works for me, but you do whatever works for you. It's all good. So I did a 4 color blend this time. I don't do this very often because, again, it's laziness, honestly. But since these are kind of the focal point and I wanted to have, some deeper areas, I did 4 different shades of red and just went darkest to lightest. I do find that's another reason why I love this stamp set so much is I just find these florals really easy to color. It also does get easier over time, so I'm kind of biased because I've done dozens of videos using this set and coloring these in. So I don't even have to think about it anymore. So that is what it is. But even without that, the reason why it's a favorite is, well, 1, large florals, but also the way these are drawn with all of the little lines that, indicate shadow and shaded areas make it easier to color. Because that's where I start. I put the darkest colors where all the little lines are, and just build from there. So I did all my coloring. I let it dry, which didn't take long because these are alcohol markers. But I still tested it out just to make sure, just, you know, because it's like this step is the most nerve-wracking in a sense. So I used my anti-static powder tool on these images, and then I poured embossing powder over. I've talked about this in many videos. I personally do not like heat embossing and then coloring with alcohol markers for 2 reasons. One, alcohol marker will sit on top of the embossing because that's alcohol markers. It's what they're going to do. So I don't like that. It's hard to avoid, you know, getting the ink on top of it, and then it looks messy and I don't like it. And the second reason is there is something in heat embossed images that does not play well with alcohol markers. It can over time, if you do it a lot, over time it can start to like eat away at your marker nibs. I ain't willing to risk that. Now, that said, there's a lot of people that will heat emboss and color and they've never had a problem. That's great. I'm just not willing to, more so because of the first reason, which is the alcohol markers sitting on top of the heat embossing and it just doesn't look as good. So this is what I do instead. So I stamp the image, color it, and this is why you leave the stamps where they are, line everything up a second time, and then you just heat emboss on top. So that's the nerve-wracking aspect, is just making sure things are lined up for the second stamping and the heat embossing, because, you know, trust me, I've been there, I've done it. This is why I don't do this very often, because I have not paid enough attention and then stamped it, you know, not properly, and it wasn't lined up, and then I just ruined the images that I'd spent all the time coloring, and I was like, no, why, you know? But these worked because I was paying attention. You know, I lined everything up on the MISTI, had everything in the corner, etc., and it just worked. So all of that to say, again, do what works for you. You know, you could skip the heat embossing completely and just stamp and color them. That would look beautiful too. But I just wanted the gold heat embossing. So after I had heat embossed these with the gold embossing powder, I used my little microfiber cloth just to remove all that excess anti-static powder, which then makes the red pop a whole lot more. And then once I've done that, I'm going to use the coordinating wafer dies to die cut all of these. And just getting them lined up, just like so, making sure that everything is in its place. And after all my coloring and heat embossing and everything, I still played a little fast and loose with the wafer dies. Like, I didn't tape them down. So like everything, y'all, sometimes trying to explain my thought process with a lot of this is just, you know, a lot of times I have good reasons for doing what I do. And then other times it's like, there was no thought. Like, brain was shut off, you know, brain was just not caring. I don't know. It's weird. Anyway, it worked though. I was able to die cut them and I didn't wreck them. So yay me. Anyway, after I die cut them, for my background, I'm using the Splendid Snowflakes embossing folder, which if I'm like uploading in the order I think I am, I used this on my previous video. Love this embossing folder. It's so pretty. So I ran more Desert Storm cardstock through with this folder. Like, look at it. Look all the different levels of the snowflakes. That's why I love this one so much. And snowflakes. I've talked about this a lot. You can never have too many snowflake things, like stamps, dies, embossing folders, because they're all unique, you know? That's how I justify it. Anyway, I embossed Neenah Desert Storm cardstock with this embossing folder for this pretty snowflake background. And then I decided to trim these down. I was going to keep them full size and then decided to trim them down to about 3 3/4 by 5 inches. So I knocked like a 1/4 inch off each side. And that'll give my card base, will like frame it up. And then after I did that, of course I'm going to add splatter, like, of course. So I'm just using some permanent white gouache. Just, people ask, I get, like, you know, that's another thing I get asked a lot. Like, why do I choose what I choose? And with splatter, honestly, you guys, a lot of the times, it is the laziness dictating. This was sitting on my desk. So I didn't even have to look. Do I have 20 plus different types of splatter mediums? Yes. Do you need all the different kinds? No. So often you can kind of just use what you got and it will be fine. Especially for something like this on just regular old cardstock. Pretty much anything's going to work. I used this because, yeah, it was sitting there. So I put a little bit on my palette, watered it down a little bit, swirled it around with my fan brush, and then splattered the heck out of these backgrounds because it's a snowy background, you know? Have fun with it. So after I had done that, I let that dry, which didn't take long, and I did a bunch of die cutting. And the Snowflake die, that's one of the newer ones. That's the Heartfelt Snowflake. And I die cut that from Simon's white glitter cardstock. Love. Shown their glitter cardstocks in a bajillion videos. I get asked about that a lot. Because not all glitter cardstocks are the same. Some do not die cut well at all. The Simon brand ones work amazingly. So does Altenew, Tonic, Lawn Fawn. I'm trying to think of what other ones I might have. Those are my main ones. All those brands, I have no problem die cutting. Even like delicate things like this. Like, yeah. So the white glitter cardstock, die cut it with that Heartfelt Snowflake wafer die. And I adhered that into place with some craft tacky glue. And then I used an oldie but goodie set. That's the Pointy Pine Needle Sprigs. This came out like, I think last year. And I die cut from scraps of the Desert Storm cardstock. This would look really pretty done in, green as well. But this ended up turning into kind of a almost monochromatic sort of card, like just the red and then neutrals. I was okay with it. It was fun. So I adhered those into place again, which is craft tacky glue, and then wrap some baker's twine around this panel. And I'm gonna use my reverse tweezers to pinch that knot closed to hold it in place, so I can sit and fiddle with my bow, get it the way I want, and then fiddle with it some more, as is tradition. And then after I've got my little bow tied into place, I am going to start adhering my florals. And for these, I'm going to use some foam squares to give them a little bit of dimension, and also just, it makes it a little easier to adhere because I've got like so many levels of things going on because the embossing folder has different levels, and then all these die cuts have different levels. So this just kind of evens everything out in a sense, if that makes sense. And then once I've got my florals adhered, for my sentiment, I'm using another newer a little wafer die. This is the Fancy Piece wafer die. And I die cut it again from scraps of Desert Storm cardstock. And then the top layer I die cut from Simon's Matte Gold cardstock. And adhered a couple layers, so just the Desert Storm and the gold for the first part, because this one cuts in 2 pieces. And then I cut down a couple more little pieces just behind the A, because it's going to hang off. You'll see as I adhere it to the actual card front. And then the final portion of the sentiment, I adhered several layers of the Desert Storm before adhering the gold piece. This again is just meant to kind of even things out, because I was not about to fiddle with any sort of foam adhesive behind sentiments like this. It's another thing I've talked about a lot. Not my favorite thing to do. I love when other makers do it, especially like when they do it in a way that makes the sentiment look like it's floating. Such a neat look. I almost never do it because I just don't have the patience. So kudos to those that do, because I do love the look of it. But anyway, I used just the word wafer die. I adhered it like I showed. I didn't use the outline, just the word. I was good with that. And then I put Simon's Big Mama foam tape on the back of the panel. And then adhered this to my card base, which is a top folding A2 card made from some red cardstock. So 4 1/4 by 5.5 inches. And then I trimmed down some more Desert Storm cardstock to like the 3 3/4 by 5 inches. This is going to go on the inside of the card. And I'm stamping the 3 individual florals onto this piece with Simon's Cranberry Positively Saturated ink. And you see, I'm just kind of selectively inking up the stamps. I'm not masking. Again, this was kind of a lazy thing, but also I just felt like it wasn't necessary. And it just works. But there would be nothing wrong with like stamping these and masking. You could even use the dies, because the dies cut pretty close to these individual florals. So I did think about like I could just die cut some copy paper and mask it, and then I was like, I'll just ink it up sort of selectively and stamp it, and it just works. It just works. So stamp those onto the inside and didn't add any other sentiments. I just left that as is to kind of keep it a little more open-ended. And then I adhered those panels onto the inside of the card. And then as my final embellishment, I'm using some Stay Gold confetti from Simon Says Stamp, just to bring in that final little touch, and figured out where I wanted to place them. And then I'm just picking them up with my little embellishment wand and gluing them into place with Craft Tacky Glue. And once I had the one, did the same thing with the second one. Just got to let the glue dry. And once the glue is dry, these cards are complete. So another one to add to the mix of the Beautiful Flowers playlist. Getting close to, I think roughly it's close to 3 dozen videos I've done using this again. And you can do this with any large floral, really, you know? But this one's just always going to be a favorite of mine. So, like I mentioned in the beginning, I'll have links to all the things in the description box below the video. And then I'll have all those playlists that I talked about. Those will be linked in the end screen, so you can check those out if you are interested. Thank you all so much for hanging out with me, for thumbs upping and commenting. It helps a ton. I really appreciate it. Subscribe if you haven't. I'd love to have you. And I'll see you all very soon in the next video. Bye. Thank you so much to my amazing Patreon supporters. For anyone that might be interested in joining my Patreon community and supporting me, the link to my Patreon is in the description box below the video. For everyone else, as always, thank you all so much for taking the time to watch my videos, for thumbs upping, commenting, subscribe if you haven't, I'd love to have you. And here's a couple other videos for you to check out in case you missed them. Bye!